What's going on, everybody? Welcome to another edition of the Talking to the Doll Benfica Podcast. Whoa, I'm out of focus. Focus. What's going on, Steve?
Yeah, another night, another podcast. But this is coming off of a very interesting and I say almost like a highlight of the podcast. I think having all three of us together, being at the game, that was quite the weekend that we just had.
Yeah, for sure. As you could see, we're not in our regular setting today. Cristiano is not with us. He couldn't be with us. So we're in a different setting. Nonetheless, the same usual content. My name is Alfredo. As you've heard, this is Steve. This is episode number 165 after the PSG game in Toronto. We're going to be talking mainly about the game up in Toronto and some of the observations that we had that night. As you all know, Cristiano and I traveled up to Toronto, as Steve said, and all of us three were together. And let me just start by saying that really appreciated meeting some of you. I hope I don't mess up it. Well, Mario, his wife Simba, right? Sergio, já foste. Kevin, his wife that I don't recall the name right now. Lisa, sorry, Lisa.
And it's Cynthia, not Simba. Simba's her sign on Twitter.
Well, I know her by Simba, but yeah, Cynthia, you're right. And also DJ Hank Wood, we were walking around the stadium to get in, and he recognized this, and he was kind enough to introduce himself to us, and we're very grateful for that. And I don't know if any of you guys just saw us and were just too embarrassed to say hello or not, but nonetheless, it was nice being up there and meeting some of the people, and it was a really good experience, and even better experience hanging out with Steve in person, since we do this live every week, and I usually don't have a chance to do it too often, so it was nice to be up there with Steve. It's too bad that Cristiano is not here to share some of his experiences, but we will share some of ours, I should say, Steve, right?
Yeah.
So let's get right into the game. Benfica played PSG up at BMO Field up in Toronto, Saturday night, 8:30. Very warm, Steve. Warm and humid.
Very sticky. It was one of those days where it just felt like your clothes was sticking to you all day. It was just kind of gross. I felt bad for the players. It's very difficult to breathe when it's in those types of conditions, but the first half was of a pretty high quality from both sides. The second half kind of died off a bit, and I think even though there was a lot of fresh guys out there, I think the weather did have a little bit to play in that.
Yeah, absolutely. So, Steve, just let me run this by you. I know that we had a chance to talk before the game. We did kind of like a quick hangout live on YouTube, and we had some comments before the game. But surprised at all that basically the 11 that JJ. So I gotta lose that habit that Vitória put in on the field was basically the lineup for last year. If you give or take, if you take away the right back, it was basically the lineup from last year.
Yeah, the right back and Salvi were the only guys that were different from most of our games from last year. I think it was a good thing. You saw how much more comfortable those players were with each other than what happened in the second half. I mean, the first half you saw a lot of the processes that we're very accustomed to seeing too, plus a few other extra things that it seems like Rui Vitória is trying to implement. But I personally, as much sense as it made, I would have liked to see maybe from the beginning some guys that you don't really know where they're at right now. Some of the new guys, maybe Carcella, maybe I don't know, maybe Tarat, somebody like that, just to feed them into the ideas that are already concrete just add them in as just like a little bit of spice instead of main parts of the dish type thing. You want them just to kind of blend in with everybody else instead of trying to come up with their own ideas and not having reference points and whatnot that are normally there. That's what I would have preferred. But if you watch the first half, we played pretty good football most of it. So there's definitely positives to it as well.
Yeah, I don't think there's much of a difference as far as the lineup, as far as the formation goes. We're all too familiar with the formation, but we did notice a couple things different, especially, and Steve was very quick to point this out. The build up out of the back, it looked familiar, but then if you look very closely, there's a certain variation to it. You want to just elaborate on that, Steve?
The How high up the fullbacks go and how wide they go is something that we haven't seen that much. The whole defensive midfielder splitting the center backs and creating a 3 versus 2 in the build-up, because normally only 2 guys come out to press the center backs, so it gives you an extra man. It makes it easier to bring the ball up. But how high the wingers were, the fullbacks were going, made them almost like wingers, and what our wingers were doing were coming inside to offer passing lanes to Samaris or to Pizzi, depending who picks up the ball, and it outnumbers in midfield as well, because you end up with 4 in midfield after that as well, when you count in Jonas. So it looks pretty good. There's definitely a focus or an emphasis from Rui Vitória to try to keep the ball, I think. I mean, there wasn't very many long goal kicks. Almost everything came in short, either to Samaris or to one of the center backs. It seems like the team is positioned in midfield a little bit closer to one another, so that there is an easy pass to keep the ball moving. It looks like there is more intention from Vitória to play a possession-based game than what our former coach used to do.
Yeah, absolutely. And it was funny that that build up out of the back. The other thing that I noticed is that when somebody drops in and he's actually marked by somebody, Pizzi acts as a second choice or as an alternative. Yeah. And the one thing that we noticed was with I forget who was hurt. Somebody was hurt.
It was Talishka.
Talishka was hurt out of the back, and they were about to set up that build up, and somebody's called it off. So we know that there's a definite intention of the build up out of the back with that. And also what I wanted to mention, this is something that's been coming up, is that Samaris is really emerging as a leader in this team, Steve.
Absolutely. I mean, we all know I have a certain thing for Samaris. I like guys who are ball players that play in the 6th spot. I like guys like that. But as soon as I saw that, you know what, he's already turning into a boss on the pitch, and I think Cristiano had a word for me. It was like, here you go, you and your Samaris. But it's funny, I saw that, and then there was a few other instances in the match where it looks like he is really being vocal out there, and he is a reference point for everybody else on the pitch. And then today you see a lot of different articles about his leadership qualities and the way he speaks to the press, and how he's gone out of his way to really assimilate to the country and learn the language, and wanting to be an important part of the squad. So I honestly think he's probably going to be the vice captain under Luizão at this moment. I think he's got, from what we can tell, he's got the best profile for it. Even if a Gaetan has been there for longer, a Salvi has been there for longer, it's just a different personality.
Yeah, absolutely. And also there was an article on a ball, if I'm not mistaken, that was saying that he is actually absorbing Vitória's ideas the best, or rather more than anyone else. I'm sure Luizão is right in there with him, but I think Samaris is such a crucial player in that system that he tends to be picking this up. Of course, he's not really being yelled at in a language that he doesn't understand. Rui Vitória does speak English, but let me just say that Samaris' Portuguese is very, very good for somebody that's only been in the country for about a year. So
It's
we're
fantastic.
we're looking forward to that. Megan was asking what we thought about Rui Vitoria's coaching style, and Megan, for one thing, very very relaxed on the sideline, always giving directions and making the adjustments, but not the mental case of an ex-coach that we used to have, yelling and cursing. I think he
No.
was very relaxed and instructing at the same time. I think that was the biggest thing for me. I don't know if you noticed anything else, Steve.
Yeah, you don't see arms waving and screaming across the pitch. He made a point in one of his interviews when he first signed to say that he's not that type of coach. Normally, what he does to relay his messages, he'll talk to the guy who's closest to him and get that guy to relay the message onto the pitch. It's just a completely different personality. You went from a very hyper, high-strung person to a very, I won't say laid back because I don't want to put that label on him,
No.
but he's a much more calmer and dare I say classier individual than Jesus was.
Yeah. So definitely, that was the biggest change that we noticed, and I welcome that change. And look, he's very calculated. We had the chance to hear him speak after the game in the pregame press and a postgame presser, and look, he was very very calm. His ideas are there's not 1 ounce of hesitation or nervousness in his speech when you hear him talk. He knows exactly what he wants. He has an answer for everything, and quite logical answers also, if I may add. So it was refreshing to see him. But let's go back to the game. So Benfica went down 2-1, if I'm not mistaken, at the end of the half, and then the subs came in. I mean, we had a lot of guys come in the 46th minute. Carcela came in, João Teixeira came in, Andre Almeida came in. But Steve, quickly about Carcela is perhaps one of the guys that we had the biggest expectations for him, or we were most excited about seeing him. And I know it's only one game, and we don't want to judge anybody by one game, especially when you're doing double sessions, during the week and so on and so forth. But Carcelo was kind of disappointing to me.
Absolutely, I think it's very fair to say that he was disappointing. Um, there is no doubting that he has technical ability. I personally am quite confident that he will get it right and he will adapt to the team. He just looks too technically gifted not to be able to do it. What I liked about the first substitutions, the first three guys, is that if you ask me, those are the three guys that are really on the fringes of the 11 from the start. Pizzi and Teixeira, I really think the only thing that Pizzi has over Teixeira is a little bit of experience, a little bit of maturity. Carcela versus Talisca it wasn't really. He came on for Jonas, but that was the spot that's up for grabs is that spot on the right, and I I, I could see why Vittori has the idea that he might have a good shot against Talisca at that spot until Savi comes back, and then the right back. We all know that between Almeida and Silvio, there's very little difference. If anything, I think I prefer Almeida, and I've said that here on the podcast before. So he gave the most amount of minutes to the guys that I think are the closest on his radar for the positions that were up for grabs.
Yeah, absolutely. And also something reports coming out of actually here in New Jersey was that Silvio picked up a little bit of a knock. And even though it's nothing serious,
Surprise there.
he's being watched closely. So it's a guy that we've talked endlessly here, how he's injury prone and has these issues with injuries. Unlucky of him. He's a good player, but it's perhaps a guy that we may not even count on for the full season at right back, and we need somebody that's going to bring that consistency, so we keep that consistency in the back line. So I'm not sure, but Almeida is definitely a viable alternative, but we're not really sure. It all depends on the system that Rui Vitória implements. I mean, if he needs a guy that's more vertical, maybe Almeida is not the guy.
Yeah, that's the thing. If you look at the way he set up the team in the build-up phase, you're going to need a more technical and pacey guy than Almeida, I think, unless he alters that a little bit. But I don't. Almeida's a very ordinary player when it comes to technical ability and pace. He's not very fast, or he's just very steady. You could count on the guy, but the way he's setting up the team, it looks like you're going to need some extraordinary type stuff from the fullbacks. A lot of overlapping to offer the width that you're losing from the wingers coming inside. So even Eliseu, okay, he's probably a better attacker than Almeida is, but I don't think he's got the lungs or the fitness anymore to do the whole flank like he's probably going to be asked to do. So I wouldn't. I really think that probably a center midfielder is high on our list of possible signings, but I wouldn't be surprised if the fullbacks are getting a look at that too, because it's one, we don't have the highest quality of fullbacks, and two, it looks like the way Vitor wants to play, he's going to need some flyers on the wings.
Yeah, I got to be honest. A little bit of that I saw of Marsala, I wasn't too impressed.
No,
He
same.
is somebody that has the lungs to go up and down. But with a lot of these guys that comes from smaller teams, you got to weigh in the factor that the shirt might be too heavy for them. Speaking uh, in terms of a feeling, not a physical type of deal, but you know what I mean when I say that. Um, yeah, so we'll see. I mean, right now, as it stands, I think that it wouldn't be a bad idea to pick up a wing back or a fullback, whatever. Whether it's a left or right. I think that in the middle of the defense, I think I there was one thing that I mentioned to you, Steve, is that Jardel's last year did very well for Jardel. He's a guy with a lot of confidence this year. That's the first thing that I saw him. And even though he lost out on that interception in the first goal, I thought that he was very, very good as far as the confidence, the positioning. He's definitely improved from last year, Steve. And then Luizão, there's Luizão, and there's Lisandro Lopes. That's another alternative. Then we also have Lindelof. Looks like Cesar has moved on loan to Brazil. But
Flamengo.
as far as the defense goes, I think that the center defense as well. I think that at minimum, a guy for the fullbacks.
Yeah, I don't rate Jardel. I just think that he's got the processes down way too tight with Luizão. He understands what needs to be done next to Luizão quite well. I don't think it will be very difficult for anybody to take his spot at this point unless they're an absolute world beater. I would like to see Lisandro play a little bit more in that position, just because if we are going to have a more possession-based type of football, your center backs need to be able to play the ball out of the back, and it's just extremely important, and that's something that we always see Jardel is going to struggle with. So it really depends how well he adapts to playing this kind of football, but he doesn't. It's going to be outside of his comfort zone. So let's see how he adapts. But given what we know about the center backs that we do have, I don't think we're going to be signing any center backs, nor do I think Lisandro is going to get Jardel's spot that quickly, if at all.
Yeah. Yeah, and Steve, Sergio is asking if we think that Vitória will stick to last year's formation, or do we think he'll implement the number 10 into the mix?
I think all signs are that we're going to stick to the same formation. I think if you're looking for a classic 10, the closest thing that we have to a classic 10 in our system is Jonas. I think he floats around in the area where a trequartista or a 10 would play, and then you have the Gaetan. I'm saying position-wise, you have Gaetan's position where he's expected to roam inside from the flank, but he's also expected to defend that flank when you're under constant pressure. So it's slightly different. Whether or not Jurisic makes it into the squad, if he does, I see it more for like a winger type position that comes inside than an actual 10. I just think I think we're going to be playing like a 4-4-2-ish shape the whole year. It's just our most influential and best player at the moment is Jonas, and you have to basically mold the team around him in a way that gets the best of his abilities. And if you give him too much defensive responsibility in a proper midfield like role, it's not worth it. If you put him up front on his own, it's not worth it. I really think that you're looking at a 4-2 again. That might look like a 4-2-3-1 at times because of how deep Jonas will venture to find the ball. But in terms
Yeah.
of tenacity and expecting him to really cover the defensive midfielder of the other team, I don't see that really happening.
Yeah,
So a number 10, a proper number 10, no, Sergio, I don't see it. No.
yeah, I agree. I don't think that it'll deviate much of what was done last week as far as with the formation that's there, because a lot of those guys are familiar, and being that the 11 didn't change much, I think he's going to stick with that. I think he will introduce a few tweaks here and there, and I think on occasion, depending on what's needed and depending on the game, he may very well change it up a little bit, the variation of the formation, introducing maybe another guy to the middle, maybe
Yeah.
against teams like Porto and Sporting, where we'll need another guy in the middle. That's always an option.
If anything, I could see him maybe losing a striker to play another guy in the midfield.
Yeah,
Maybe for whatever reason, dropping a Lima type thing and putting another runner in midfield. But it's very early days to try to predict that from him. He did say that he is a believer in switching systems for certain matches. He did a few interviews, so I'm not sure which one I read it or saw it in, but he did say that he is a believer in that. So I do believe in Champions League matches and stuff, we probably will see some sort of variation. They'll probably get another guy in the midfield, but in Portugal, I don't think we'll see it too often.
yeah. So, Steve, another wave of players after the guys at the half. Paul Lopes, and this is at the 65th minute. Paul Lopes, Marçal, Olajan, and Nelson Oliveira. And basically, I know we've already spoken about Marçal, but Paul Lopes gives up that goal. We obviously know that Paulo Lopes is not a real number two. He's more like a three and maybe a Taça de Liga type of guy. I don't know. Olajan seems to be in a stagnating period right now where he doesn't really know about his future. As far as Nelson Oliveira, just perhaps one thing that he did right, he tried to chip over the goalie, but as far as everything
I think he
else
lost the
goes,
ball every other time that he got it. I think he either had a poor touch or lost the ball. I don't know. I personally don't think he's good enough. I've said this for a while now. I know we all have hopes and dreams of him being our star striker and him being the number 9 for Portugal and all this, but I think Nelson either believed he was there before he ever got there, or maybe just isn't ready to evolve. I don't know. There isn't a lot of raw ability there. I mean, he's quick. He's got good feet, but it just seems like, I don't know, when it comes time to make the right decision, or when it comes time that his touch has to be good, he has a loose touch. It's just I don't. He's not. For me, he's not a player for Benfica. He's just not.
yeah. I remember on one occasion that he was inside the box and he had no one on his back and his touch betrayed him. Had he gotten a good touch and a good turn, he could have had a good attempt on goal, but his touch betrayed him. The other guys, let's see, in the 77th minute, the other guy that I also thought was stagnating, and Steve, you and I spoke about this, was Brian Cristante. He came in the 77th minute along with Gonçalo Guedes and Victor Lindelof, and really no really improvement on Cristante. And right now he just seems to be left behind on the alternatives that we have.
Yeah, Cristante is. It's a shame because he's got great feet. I mean, you could tell when he plays the ball around, his touch is just really good. His passing range is very good, especially for a player of his age. It's just he seems to lack that bit of aggressiveness. He doesn't not even just pace. Like we can all tell that he's not fast. I don't know. Sometimes those tall guys, they look like they're slower than they actually are, but he doesn't seem to have much pace. But he doesn't have that. It doesn't look like he's always switched on. You know what I mean? Like it doesn't look like he's aware of situations and he's ready to chase down. I really think that if anything, the last year he said he learned a lot, but I think if anything, it stunted his growth. I mean, this is a player at his age who needs to play football week in, week out. He was a guy that didn't get minutes for the B team, which you guys brought up a very good point. I can't remember if it was you or Chris. It might have been stipulated in his contract that he's not going to play for the team. We don't know this, but the kid's got to play. I personally don't have the faith that he's going to play much for us this year. I honestly think the best thing for us to do with him is loan him. There's just too much ability in him to just throw it all away, but he needs to play, and he needs to understand that there's more to the game than just cute passes and whatnot. He's got to up his intensity level.
Yeah, he's stagnating as it is right now, and right now I think he's very low on the pecking order. So I'm not really sure. It'd probably benefit him to go out on loan. Alex on Twitter is asking if Vieira refuses to spend money. We really don't know. I think that at right now there's a lot of guys training with this team. Vitória is weighing in all his options and looking at what can be done as far as his idea of how Benfica should play and what the guys are available to them. But I wouldn't rule out sometime in August, perhaps even before the transfer window closes, that we hit the market. Don't forget, we got Julie Cesar and Jonas last year, and the championship had already begun. So we're not really sure what's going to happen. I'm pretty sure that with the fact that we really haven't spent a lot of money, well, not big money on guys, I think that if Vitória turns to Rui Costa or Luis Felipe Vieira and says, look, I need this. This is the guy that we need to balance out this team or to add depth to this team. I think that we will go out and get him the player that he needs, especially because on the first year that that JJ was the champion, just think about it. Think about the squad that he had this Benfica. Also, the not this past year, the year before that. Think of all the guys that we had. I know that Benfica is not following that model anymore, going on and spending tons of cash. But I think that if there's a guy that's going to bring something to this team, that's going to add something to this team, whether it's depth or a guy that's going to make the difference, I think that Benfica will go out. And if the conditions are right, they will get him in the market. So
I completely agree. I think there's obviously there are going to be positions that Rui Vitória is going to say that he needs a better player for. He'll name 2 or 3 guys. I hope this is how it works, or the scouting will name 2 or 3 guys, and they'll go from there, because it seemed like it's very difficult to negotiate a transfer these days. I mean, the Portuguese teams, well, I don't know. I guess I shouldn't go this far because it seems like Porto and Sporting are able to spend a bit of money this year, but we don't tend to have the spending power not only to buy players but to pay them wages. So you have to. Not only can you have to single out a player that fits what you need, but also a player that's attainable to you. So it gets a little bit difficult. But yeah. I do agree that we will be going into the market. Even Luis Felipe Vieira said that Rui Vitória would have all the conditions that JJ had. So yeah, I think we'll go into the market for at least a couple of guys.
Yeah, and Sergio was also talking about the pecking order as far as the forward line goes, and Derlei left to Turkey, was it that he left to?
Kersempispor or something like that. Sorry if I butchered that, but I don't even have the writing in front of me, so it's not that easy.
He left to Turkey, and I think that J-Rod automatically becomes the guy right off the bench. I think he's ahead of Nelson Oliveira.
Based on what we've seen, our friend J-Rod, as you guys like to call him, has a lot more attributes to his game than Nelson does at the moment. He looks like he could be quite the special player, but we'll see what happens from there.
Yeah, so 3-2 preseason game, first preseason game. I mean, I know that it's we always like to see the team win, and it's always encouraging to see the team win. But remember, when was it? Last year we basically lost almost every single game of the preseason. So I mean,
Yeah.
it's an indicator. The biggest thing that we're looking for is not how many goals the team can score, but how are they adopting the ideas that the coach is transmitting to them. Of course, this is a new coach, so there's a lot to assimilate and a lot to absorb. But that's the biggest thing you should be taking out of these games, not whether Benfica is beating a PSG team that fielded a B squad, if you want to call it, but what are the ideas that the coach is introducing to the players and how are they assimilating? I think this is the biggest thing that you could take from this game. So the result, albeit, they come to Toronto, you don't see them in Toronto or North America that often. It's always, nice to see the team and especially win, but the result is not the most important thing. I think we're going to break here. We don't have the Nelson halftime headlines live today, but we're going to break here, and it will be on the audio version of the podcast. So we're just going to take a quick 2 seconds of silence so we can introduce that in there, and then we'll be right back. All right, we're back. And before we go any further, big shout out to Cesar Murtagua, who's watching us from Venezuela. Venezuela, it's got to be a first, Steve. Venezuela live.
Yeah, I think it's our first South American listener. That's pretty awesome. I know there's quite the Portuguese immigrant community down in Venezuela. I wonder if he's one of that community or if he's a local, because his last name is kind of hard to tell. But he's got a couple questions about footballers that I know. I've seen El Abdelouis name being pushed around. I don't know enough about him. Mike A, I'm pretty sure is a right back from Brazil we've been linked to. I couldn't tell you whether or not we are going to sign either of these guys, nor could I give you a good idea of what I think they could offer the team. Mike A being a right back, I know is something that we need. Whether or not we'll go after him, it's only time will tell.
Yeah, absolutely. So we don't know, and there's no really indication from the club, even from the Portuguese media. Usually it starts to heat up, and when several outlets start reporting it more frequently, then we know that there's something going on, that there's some smoke coming out. But as far as those two guys, they have been mentioned, but no real indication that we're going to be signing them. So Steve, Benfica now has been in Jersey all week. They've been training here about 20 minutes from my house. I haven't had a chance to go out there and watch the team. Of course, I think they only opened 15 minutes to the media, which it almost seems pointless to go out there in 15 minutes just to watch these guys just touch the ball around playing 5v1. So they are training. I think this afternoon they were in New York shopping. And on Friday, they will be in Connecticut. Chris and I will be in Connecticut also to watch the game. Unfortunately, Steve won't be here, but he will be at Red Bull Arena on Sunday with us three again. Steve, on Friday, we play Fiorentina. I don't know if you guys had a chance, but if you follow Chris at Tencio10, you saw some pictures. He was at the Fiorentina practice today in New York, and he had a chance to speak to Paulo Sousa also. He said he was a very cool guy. But Steve, what are some of the things that we can look forward to as far as this Fiorentina game, now that we've got the first game under our belt?
Well, it's going to be interesting to see how much of Paulo Sousa's ideas have gone through to Fiorentina. He's a coach that likes to play pressing football. He likes to really try to get at the defense when you're trying to build up from the back. So if he's already got this implemented with them, it's going to be quite interesting to see how we react, especially since this new system of trying to really play possession football and build out from the back is somewhat new to us. I really am interested to see how we adapt to the pressing game that I'm pretty sure Paulo Sousa will implement.
Yeah. And Fiorentina is actually playing right now with PSG. I don't know what the score is, but I know that they're playing right now here in New Jersey. But Steve, do you think there'll be any changes as far as the lineup goes? You think he'll try new things, new variations of that lineup. Maybe now giving some more starting position to those fringe guys that he introduced in the start of the second half.
I would think so. I think you'll still see your base, like because you have to keep your base because if you watch the second half of the game that we saw in Toronto, the first half there was structure. You could see that there was a unity between the players. There was always more or less the same amount of room between same amount of space between the center forward and the last line of the defense. Everything moved as a unit. And then when the second half came out and there was a whole bunch of new players, people were everywhere, and it was a bit of a mess. So you got to keep your core guys to kind of implement your ideas so that everyone has reference points to players that know what they're doing and know where they have to be, know when they need to press, know when they need to sit back, all of these things. So you're gonna have your Luizão, your Samaris. You're gonna have maybe Gaitan, maybe not, but Luizão, Jardel, Samaris, those guys will start. I'm almost positive. Jonas will probably start again and come off at half again. You're gonna have that core of the middle guys. For me, they're gonna start. You got to add the fringe guys in there, the guys who may or may not be better than your first option from last year. You got to give them minutes, and you got to give them a good look. So I'd assume that you'll see probably, if you wanted me to give you a lineup, Almeida, Jardel, Luizão, Marçal, Samaris. He might start Teixeira this time instead of PC, just to give him a little bit more game time. Gaitan and Carcala, Jonas Lima, and then you can give guys minutes from there. But I'd say something like that would be your best bet.
Yeah. We also have to consideration that Benfica will, they'll play Friday in Connecticut and they'll play Sunday in New Jersey. So a day in between. So there's definitely going to be a little bit more rotation by Vitória as the squad goes, as far as the squad goes. So we'll just have to see what kind of rotation, what guys are going to be getting looks at, because at this point, I think that once he gets to Portugal, after playing here in New Jersey and then the 2 games in Mexico, right before the Super Cup, I think that at that time he's going to probably be making the first cuts on this team. And I know that we had an argument last week about how many players were going to make this team, but it was curious to see that many players warming up. It was incredible, the amount of balls and the amount of guys on just one half of the field. 30 players, I believe. That's how many players Benfica brought to North America. So we'll definitely be watching out for those cuts. I don't know, some guys might not even make it all the way to the end of this North American tour. Steve, maybe Ola John, perhaps.
He seemed to have a bit of market at the end of last season. There was a few rumors, so I could see that. I could definitely see that. I could see. I don't want to say Gaitan, but that's a possibility. There's obviously the market's never really closed until it's actually closed, so you never know. But Ola John is probably the one with the most market out there that I'm pretty sure we're probably going to give up on. Well, we'll see.
Yeah, I think so. I think that at this point, after this many years, I think that if Ola John hasn't become a player that's on a fringe, which I don't think right now, he's a fringe player, or I think that there's a clear understanding that people are moving away from Ola John being a guy that can step into a starting role at the moment. I think last year it was an alternative because maybe we didn't have any more. But I think with the introduction of Carcela, Tarat, I think that Ola John is going to lose his spot, and I think it's very possible that he'll go out somewhere. Rumors were that he was going to end up in England somewhere, but I think that Benfica is perhaps waiting for the right offer. If I don't know if you recall, but he was very expensive, albeit a guy that was bought along with Doyen Doyen Sports. Benfica spent a lot of money on him as an 18-year-old. So we'll just have to see. We're definitely looking forward to seeing the team again in Connecticut, to see how the team has evolved from the time we saw them on Saturday. Also at Red Bull Arena in New Jersey, we're also looking forward to that when Benfica plays not such a difficult teams like Fiorentina or PSG. I always say a PSCG.
I was gonna say you never say that right. It's only 3 letters.
PSG. But maybe I should just say Paris Saint-Germain. Maybe I should
sounds
just
better.
say, like, I always say PSC&G. For those of you who don't know, that's a utility company here in New Jersey.
That's why.
I always mix that up together. It's the same letters except with the E inside.
There you go.
But anyway, we're looking forward to seeing Benfica play again this weekend. And if you're in Connecticut, I already got a couple guys reaching out that we're gonna get together with them. Hugo Stapado said his dad makes the best pastéis nata in the East Coast, so I'm looking to try those out. So Cristiano and I are going to be around in Connecticut. We're trying to get there early because we heard it's a mess getting in there. It's only one way in, one way out. We're looking forward to meeting Stephanie. I think she's going to the game, and a bunch of other people. So we're looking forward to that. And then New Jersey also. If you guys are coming, we'll be out there. Just tweet at us and let us know where you are. We'll get together, have a couple beers and stuff. Steve, I think that's pretty much it, dude.
Yeah, I think we've covered a lot of what happened in the match. I don't think there's any. I'll give a quick look at the news, but I don't think there's anything really telling out there. There's the usual off-season stuff of agents speaking for their players and whatnot. Judicic's agent says he's ready to fight, which I hope he is, because that's a player that we know has a lot of talent. But no, it seems pretty quiet at the moment, which I don't know how to take that. But I still am quite confident that we'll go to the market, at least 1 or 2 players.
Yeah, I'm a firm believer that we will go to the market, not because we feel that we have to follow the footsteps of Sporting and Porto, who are spending with no limits and hoping that they could finally take one away from Benfica, who has won the past couple championships. No, I don't think we'll follow their footsteps, but I think that there's a couple surgical buys that if we have to make, we will make, just to improve on the team. Also to improve the quality of the team, since we're going to be in a Champions League. I think the main priority is going to be the league, but I think that there's going to be more emphasis being put on the Champions League and getting past the group stages into the next round this year. So I think that if we need to do that, Vieira knows that we need to add depth to this squad and to add quality, and I think that a couple other guys would do that for us, Steve.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So that's pretty much it. Again, thank you very much for the people that we saw up in Toronto and took the time to meet us, Mario and his wife, and Kevin and his wife, and Sergio, and DJ Hank Wood, and all that good stuff. Thank you very much. We'll be back next week. We will break down the Benfica game in Connecticut and the Benfica game in New Jersey. Also, we're gonna, if the Wi-Fi holds, we might do a before game thing before each game, and maybe a halftime thing before each game. That's pretty much it. Don't forget to check out our friends over planetbenfica.co.uk, benficapodcast.com, at 10co10, at Benfica Podcast, at Steve Santos 6 is where you can find us on Twitter, Facebook. Talking to the Dog Benfica Podcast is a page there, and that's it. Right?
Arrivederci. Yeah, that's
Arrivederci, as Chris says. All right, guys, we'll be back next week. Thanks a lot, and we'll talk to you again next week. Bye.